Hello, I'm Charlie Brooker and you're watching Weekly Wipe, a show about things that are happening. Things like this. Britain's least comfortable man persuaded to spoil a boy band video for charity. David Cameron was surprised by the warm reception he received from the One Direction boys, but then he doesn't know he's beautiful. Astonishing scenes captured on BBC's Panorama as Iceland boss spells out his company's rigorous meat testing policy.
B-E-E-F, beef. That's what's in our burgers.
I know, but the Irish say there is 0.1% of H-O-R-S-E, horse.
Well, that's the Irish, isn't it?
New obesity crisis as flurry of obesity stories forces desperate news teams to reuse stock footage of headless obese people waddling down High Street. And young British backpacker finds himself stranded in terrifying wilderness called Daybreak.
Oh, we're very happy to say that Sam and his mum Claire join us from Australia.
But we start here.
The Catholic Church in shock as the Pope says, "I quit."
Yes, as the news starkly recounted, the world's holiest man pulled the most spectacular sickie in 6 centuries of poping. Reporters immediately ran around telling everyone the news about the Pope's resignation, and let me tell you, they were shocked, truly shocked.
Oh, I'm so shocked.
See? I mean, who can believe it? The Pope has resigned.
You're joking? The Pope? Oh my God.
As you could see from the wealth of illuminating coverage, papal traditions include being carted around in a perspex box, repeated holy arm waving, posing for merchandise, appearing on Jules Holland's Hootenanny, and of course, as bizarrely captured on Vatican television, watching a troop of butch young men slowly peeling their clothes off before acrobatically forming a big fleshy tower, while impressed nuns look on, trying not to drool themselves unconscious. But now he'd had enough and announced his departure in thrilling scenes disguised as boring ones. Well, I hope God's going to give him a good reference for his next job. Still, at least Benedict was polite enough to resign. The last pope just stopped showing up to work. We also got unbiased opinion on how good a pope he was from professional pope-likers.
Pope Benedict, a man of wisdom. Now, there's no such thing, there's no such thing as instant coffee. There's no such thing as instant wisdom.
Yeah, well, 1, there is such a thing as instant coffee, and 2, see point 1. Anyway, now the Pope had poped off, the news was concerned with who was next. Pope Benedict was old when he got the job, which was a mistake, really. The priggish papists picked a peaky pope as pontiff. Now a proper perky pontiff must the priggish papists pick. The news began excitedly profiling the youthful new candidates in scenes which resembled the selection screen in an ecclesiastical beat-em-up.
He could be up against Peter Turkson.
Peter Turkson wins! Or a rundown of the competitors in the over-75s category on X Factor. I'm not sure what kind of pope to vote for, really. A hardline one or a very hardline one? That's assuming they have to do it alone. Maybe Louis Walsh will come in and get them to form a group. And excitingly, there was also the possibility of a black pope. Black Pope sounds like a new Quentin Tarantino movie, really. I mean, I guess you could say it'd be a dark reboot for the Pope franchise, if you were racist. Anyway, seems we'll have to wait until March to find out who exactly is going to play Pope Man in Pope Man Returns. He regenerates like Doctor Who, and you can tell when it's happened because all this white smoke goes off, and he comes out with a new head on. He does. The Pope does that.
You're joking? The Pope? Oh my God.
You know what it's like when something you've already seen gets snapped up by Hollywood and they redo it with a huge budget and make it more bombastic and violent and kind of crowd-pleasing? Well, they've just done that with the Raoul Moat story, or as it's now known, the Christopher Dorner story. Christopher Dorner was a one-man lethal weapon in that he had the looks of Danny Glover and the insanity of Mel Gibson. From the get-go, the US News was dramatically recounting this tale of a former LAPD officer on the run vowing deadly revenge against everyone he claimed had crossed him. It sounded exactly like the premise to a film, which is probably why they presented it like a trailer.
Of course he knows what he's doing, and we trained him.
A manhunt for one of their own.
He was also a member of the armed forces.
Trained to kill.
Dorner is to be considered armed and extremely dangerous.
After killing several people, Dorner apparently vanished, forcing the news to construct a full-blown panic from a handful of photographs, some blurry CCTV, and countless breaking news freak-out alarm graphics. In the wake of the Colorado Cinema massacre last year, some US news outfits went out of their way not to inadvertently glorify the killer, with CNN's Anderson Cooper pointedly using the killer's name as little as possible.
I didn't use the shooter's name at all. Everybody knows the person's name, and a lot of times these shooters, they want attention. They want their names to kind of live on.
But with the Chris Dorner story, all of that went out the window quicker than you could shout blam.
The news networks were efficiently flinging every Dorner-shaped morsel they could muster through the screen. Viewers were confronted with lengthy profiles of the maniac, shown chilling footage of him training with cops so they knew how deadly he was.
I think it's a 300-pound dummy, and he does that easily.
Easily? This is 300 pounds?
Yeah, I believe that's 300 pounds.
So this is a very strong man.
Right.
And treated to constant reminders of his arsenal.
There were reports that he had numerous weapons, that he had weaponry that he might be able to shoot into the sky, that he had a .50 caliber.
Of course, if America ever banned guns, the only way for deluded maniacs to become famous will be to sing on talent shows, and we can't let that happen.
Speaking of delusions, Dorner's mind was also being probed as the news killed time by providing psychological assessments of his mental state by men dressed as background toughs in a Sopranos spin-off.
He is a classic A1 narcissist, a narcissistic personality disorder.
Wow, he sounds like exactly the sort of person who'd love all this coverage.
Dr. Lippman, fascinating discussion. Thank you so much.
And a good interview. Thanks, Jamie.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that.
Oh, tell me, what are you up to after the rampage? The news was also busily poring over Dorner's bizarre manifesto, a document Fox zhuzhed up by reading out alarming extracts in the most dramatic fashion possible.
This is my last resort. The LAPD has suppressed the truth, and it has now led to deadly consequences. The level of violence will be high.
As well as the more rambling passages where he listed celebrities he liked and praised Michelle Obama's new fringe.
Off the record, I love your new bangs, Mrs. Obama.
As well as haircuts, he also praised prominent left-wingers like Mia Farrow and Hillary Clinton. Dorner's admiration for left-wingers like Hillary annoyed whining Fox News spluttercock Sean Hannity, who galloped on air to point the finger at liberal hypocrites.
Those on the left are dismissing the notion that his shooting rampage had anything to do with his political ideology.
Hannity went on to deliberately not play the blame game, but somehow still enter it and lose.
Just because this guy liked left-wingers, I don't blame him. I blame them.
Mm-hmm. You mean you blame him, not them?
I blame him. Yes, I do not blame them.
Yeah.
In the Raoul Moat story, Gaza famously turned up offering to help out with a roast chicken and a fishing rod. In the Chris Dorner story, Gaza was played by Charlie Sheen, who recorded a surprising online video in which he reached out to the troubled gunman.
Christopher Dorner, this is Charlie Sheen. You mentioned me in your manifesto, so thank you for your kind words. I am urging you to call me. Let's figure out together how to end this thing.
Yeah, we should work out how to end this thing, because if you ask me, this third act, it's kind of depressing, Chris.
Of course, in the end, the third act panned out like any modern blockbuster. There was speeding cars, more guns, some unnecessary CGI, and a violent siege finale. Then, as the vulture cam circled on all news networks, the police set fire to the cabin and Christopher Dorner perished inside.
An explosive climax, you'd have thought, straight out of a Hollywood movie. But of course, this kind of thing has become so repetitive in the US now, it's a movie everyone's seen before about 100 times. And so it came to pass that as Christopher Dorner's corpse burned to carbon on live television, an unimpressed Bill O'Reilly threw languidly to a break.
We believe that if the Associated Press is correct, that this guy is toast, all right? He's either probably dead, either by suicide or the police got him. But we will keep you posted. We will be back in a moment.
There was this programme called Wonderful Life that was about how science did all the life. It was like this holiday thing where Mark Owen, out of Take That, goes around the world and looks at things like he's on an album cover or one of his unpopular solo projects. And it's all a lovely holiday, but then something goes wrong.
You notice he's on his own and he looks like he's thinking and you're like, oh, this is trouble. You know, it can spin you out being alone in a strange place. And sure enough, he starts saying all this moody stuff.
What is it that makes something alive? What is the difference between the living and the dead? What is life?
When my friend Paul went to Thailand, he had a bad pill and ended up crying and trying to run into the sea for 3 weeks. And this is just like that. It's like he's had a bad pill. He walks around all night through a sort of burning graveyard until he starts sounding all stoned and depressed.
It's hard to accept that when you die, you will just stop existing and that you are your life. The essence of you is just really something that emerges from an inanimate bag of stuff.
That's when his mind totally snaps and he spends the rest of his holiday spiralling out of control. He starts building all these weird machines out of bottles and stuff.
Actually works.
The stuff he says gets madder and madder until you're like, someone's got to step in and get this bloke some help. It's not right. It's just exploitation filming him like this.
The chicken is radiating disorder out into the wider universe.
And it's sad because he really wants you to understand what he's on about, because he doesn't know it's pointless.
Then he starts peaking and has all these crazy man visions where he sees like the whole galaxy in his head, and he describes all this hippie stuff.
Just by being alive, we too are part of the process of energy transformation that drives the evolution of the universe.
And then he looks calm and you realise he thinks he's found the meaning of life. And so even though he's past help, you think, fair enough, mate, good for you. Enjoy the rest of your holiday. Try not to run into the sea.
I wonder what's going on in the world.
Well, our main story this morning is that at least one meteor has come down in central London, injuring more than 500 people.
Oh, Christ! Oh, my God!
Forgive me, I think I just said that. Probably scared lots of people by saying central London, central Russia.
Oh, thank God for that. It's just Russia's been destroyed.
Yes, in a series of jaw-dropping, not to mention pants-browning images, it transpired Great God Almighty had tossed a gigantic rock at the Earth in scenes which occasionally resembled a celestial game of Angry Birds.
It was brilliant fodder for rolling news channels, which have been in training for the end of the world for ages, and now had a good dry run of exactly what it will look like.
The blast blew out windows, rocked offices, disrupted otherwise charming school lessons, and injured hundreds, but most importantly, looked amazing on telly.
Giving the meteor story extra teeth, a massive asteroid was also headed for our fragile Earth bauble, and the scientists who were promising it wouldn't hit us were exactly the same ones who hadn't seen the Russian meteor coming.
As the death rock approached, the One Show put a jaunty collision clock on screen so you could count down the seconds until the misery of watching the One Show would be blissfully extinguished by the absolute destruction of all life on Earth.
3, 2, 1.
F***ing life continues.
In the event, the near miss itself looked painfully boring compared to the Michael Bay extravaganza in the Urals, and generated images which looked more like the 70s video game version of asteroids.
Incidentally, guess who's got the highest score of all time on asteroids? That's right, the Pope.
You're jogging? The Pope? Oh my God.
This is a poem about asteroids. An asteroid was heading to Earth. The planet and all the Earthlings would be wiped out if it hit. Obama, Bolt, and Her Royal Highness the Queen hired a meeting room above a pub, and after some banter, they hatched a plan. The Chinese would build a massive net out of African minerals, Russian timber and Indian rope, and then God himself would then swing out and catch the asteroid in the net, and the French would eat it. Everyone on the planet who had access to a telly and an interest in current affairs tuned in to watch their press conference, during which the asteroid actually hit, and everyone apart from some Eskimos was wiped out. Over the coming weeks, that particular telecast was all the Eskimos spoke about as they fished for seals and drank heavily. Chilling